If you want to be trusted by investors and have them give you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, you need to know how to calculate cash-on-cash return. No investor that's ready to invest in your deal is going to feel comfortable investing in your deal if you can't clearly articulate the return they're going to get the very first year they're in the deal. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 things you need to know to calculate cash-on-cash return. And what's the magic number you're looking for so your investors feel comfortable investing in your deal. And stick around to the end because I have a bonus tip to show you how to explain to your investors if the cash-on-cash is low year one and still have them wanting to throw money at your deal. The very first tip when calculating cash-on-cash return is understanding the landscape of your numbers. When you're analyzing a deal in real estate, you're looking at a couple numbers that really show you the health of the property. And more importantly, just seeing the health of the property is catching a vision for the property. Because one of the things investors are going to want to know is, okay, this is where the property is now. This is how much I'm making year one. But where in the world are you going to take the property? Because we look for what we call value-add properties. Value-add properties are simply properties that are undermanaged and are underperforming. That's where our value lives. So when we find those properties, we want to add value to them so our investors see, I want to invest in this deal because not only am I going to make some money on year one, it's going to exponentially grow. But if you don't know how to look at those 3 specific numbers and understand how they play together and give you that cash-on-cash return, you're not going to understand how to explain it to an investor, and no investor that's going to give you $50, $100, $500,000 is going to feel comfortable allowing you to run with their money and invest in a deal. The first number you want to look at is your net return. Your net return is simply the amount of money you have left over after you've paid 100% of your expenses, including your mortgage and interest payment. So after you've paid your taxes, your insurance, your management company, all your maintenance, your utilities, your mortgage, your interest payment, and any payroll, any contractors you have, after you've paid all of your teams and your mortgage and interest, now, how much money is left over? You have to know your net return because the entire formula hangs on the hook of what that net return number actually is. So the first thing you want to do is sit down and lay out your expenses, see how much the property takes to operate, see what kind of loan you're going to get. Hint, hint, that means you need to talk to a bank before you can give your investor any sort of idea of what kind of number you're going to give them on a cash-on-cash return basis. Because if you don't know the terms your bank is going to give you, meaning what interest rate, how much money they're requiring as a down payment, you're not going to be able to calculate all of those expenses accurately. Because if you don't know how much money you need to put down and what your interest payment is, you'll never know your real expenses, and then you can't figure out that cash-on-cash return. So you have to figure out your net return first. Your net return is the very first thing. We have to not only understand how we get to that number, but we have to understand how that number plays into the overall picture of a deal. Because a lot of times when we find value-add properties, and they're underperforming, that net return can look pretty low. It can look pretty small. And sometimes that deters people from investing in properties. But what I want to share with you today is not only how to calculate that cash-on-cash return number, but inspire you. Sometimes the greatest deals live within those low cash-on-cash return numbers on year one, because we can come in, add value, and see that number increase. And when an investor sees you lay out that vision, they're going to feel exponentially more comfortable investing in your deal. So after you know the net return, then you need to understand how much cash is needed for the deal. Now there's a couple things you have to understand with cash needed for a deal. Cash needed for a deal requires you to know every single dollar it's going to take to get that property to the finish line of actually closing. What that means is you're going to need to know how much an appraisal costs, how much your inspection costs, what's your down payment, any fees that are associated with closing costs, if you're going to charge an acquisition fee, if there's capital improvements. On this property, do we need to plan for a first-year insurance? Meaning, is the insurance company going to require us to pay the first year up front? All that is included in cash needed for a deal. And you can't understand the cash-on-cash return if you don't understand not only what the net return is, but how much money it's actually going to take to get that deal to the finish line. I can tell you when you start off investing, one of the things investors look for, especially savvy investors, one of the things they look for is what numbers you include and what numbers you don't. Because they often understand investing as good or better than you do. And when they see the numbers laid out in front of them, they're looking for what you've missed and they're looking for what you made sure you added. And a lot of times, a lot of trust is won on that playing field. A lot of trust is won when they see not only your vision for the property, how you got to the idea that you can bring it to this value, why you think this is a value add property, how you came up with how much money it's going to take to get the deal, what kind of banks you're working with in order to get a great deal on your loan so you can get the principal payment down and get your net return up. They're looking at everything. And by watching this video to the end, it's going to give you the ability to explain it in a way that builds trust with them, puts a lot of dollars in your deals. And the third thing you need to know is the percentage of ownership. How much percentage are you going to own as the operator, and how much percentage is the investor going to own as being the passive investor? Because whatever your cash on cash number is, let's say it's 7%, and you're going to keep 30 and give 70% to your investors, that means that they own 70% of that 7% cash on cash return. That means your investors are going to earn 4.9% cash on cash return year one for owning a deal. Now here's a bonus tip if the cash on cash return is low and you're only giving your investors 4 to 5% in that first year. What you can do is give what's called a preferred return. You can give your investors all of the cash on cash return, all 7% for the first 12 months to make sure their cash stays high while you bring the rents up, stabilize that property, and bring the income up. And essentially, you're saying to your investor, I believe in this property so much, I'm not going to get paid until I perform. Investors love investing in deals when you believe in yourself and the deal that much. This has won me millions and millions of dollars. Last year alone, we raised $6.5 million in 6 months with this specific strategy of saying, listen, the property's underperforming a little bit right now. We know where we can take it. I'm going to give you all the cash year one, and then I'll start earning year two when we've brought the property to a certain level of success. Before we get to the magic cash on cash number, which is what all of the students in our programs want to know, they say, Mike, okay, I found a deal, but what cash on cash number am I actually looking for before I know I should pull the trigger? Before you get there, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you're notified every single time we put out a video so you can continue to grow your portfolio every single year. Let's get back to it. So what is the magic cash on cash number that I'm looking for when I'm going to do a deal? Well, cash on cash depends on your strategy. If your strategy is to buy a property and hold it long term, you need a cash on cash number north of 8%. I wouldn't take one less than 8%, especially if you're just simply parking cash and going to live off that passive income month after month after month. Anytime you look at a deal, you're looking at two specific metrics: your cash on cash return and the ability for forced appreciation. Your cash on cash return is how much money you're making as you own the property. Your forced appreciation is as you raise rents and increase the value of the property and you're earning more money, the value of the property, how much the property's worth, will increase. I'm currently buying a piece of property in Lexington, Kentucky for $1.4 million. When we increase the rents to its market rate, it's going to be worth about $2.5 million. So that would be $600,000 of forced appreciation potential. When I see that, I say, this is a really good property for us to invest in. But the cash on cash number only starts at about 6%. See, if you have heavy forced appreciation numbers, you can justify a low cash on cash return. But if you have low appreciation numbers, you need a higher cash on cash return. In real estate, I call it the dance. How much value can you add and how much forced appreciation is available in the property, and how much cash on cash return are you going to make year one? Because if you bring a deal to an investor that says it makes no cash year one, but it has $1 million of forced appreciation, most investors are going to be okay with that. So when people want to know what's the magic number, it's the wrong question. The right question is, what's your strategy? If it's a long-term hold, don't go below 8%. If the forced appreciation is strong and the rents are really low and you can increase those rents and see the value skyrocket of your property, I've taken properties that are 4 and 5%. I've taken properties that are negative cash flow because I knew the forced appreciation was so strong. Last year, I bought a 23-unit property that was negative cash flow. I lost money for 12 months on that property. And guess what happened after 12 months? It started generating about $6,000 a month in positive cash flow. I have no partners in that deal. I had to put no money into that deal. I negotiated with the seller for a seller financing deal. Now, why would I take a property with negative cash flow? Because in 12 months, it's going to generate $6,000 a month. We bought that property for $850,000. It's now worth $1.4 million. That's why I would take a low cash on cash or negative cash on cash property. So I want your COC IQ to grow. And what that means is I want the cash on cash number in your head to not be a definite concrete number, but a question of how high does this have to be in relationship to the forced appreciation that's available. If I can appreciate that property, I can take a lower cash on cash return. And that's what you have to explain to your investors. When you explain to your investors the difference between forced appreciation, cash on cash return, how those two play together, you're going to exponentially win over trust with them because they're going to know you understand what you're doing. When investors sit down with you and look at your deals, they're worried about three things. Are you going to run with my money? Are you going to preserve my money? And are you going to make me money? See, the first layer of trust they're wondering is this person going to take my money and run? The second question is, will they just preserve it? A lot of older investors, the closer they get to retirement, are way more concerned with the return of their money than the return on their money. So you have to understand that's their psychology. And the third layer of trust is they know you're going to make them money. Well, when you sit down with an investor to explain the relationship between cash on cash return and forced appreciation, you have to understand that's what's going on in the back of their head. And here's how you explain this. Year one, if I'm sitting down with an investor, this is exactly how it sounds. Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, the way that we look at properties is we look for properties that won't just make you money year one. It will make you money year one. But the least amount of money you're going to make on this deal is in the first 12 months. Our goal is not only to preserve your capital, because again, remember, that's a concern, but in 3 to 5 years, exit this property and get you a return on investment you're not going to make in the stock market. And here's how we're going to do that. We're going to raise the rents and it's going to increase the value of the property this much. This is how much money we're aiming to get you back by the time we exit you from this deal. You've just led them to their fears and then led them through their fears. Their fears that you're going to lose money, you've led them through that. And you've explained how we're going to get to the real finish line they're worried about, which is preservation of capital and making them money. You sit down with an investor and understand you're not investing money. You're investing all the hours they've put into their work and spent away from their family in history. You're investing the money in kids' college funds. You're investing their retirement accounts. You're investing the lifeblood of their freedom. You're investing their comfort. You're investing their peace of mind. So when you take that money, understand they are very concerned about what's going on. The more questions you can answer, and the more sensitivity you give to that, the more money they're going to place into your deals. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I want to give you a free gift. I want to give you our free book called 7 Steps to Analyzing a Real Estate Investment. This will allow you to analyze any property and explain it to your investors. Click the link below in the description. It'll take you to a page. Snag that book, and I can't wait to see you in our next video.